Hi folks, I recently made a cool glitchy drum patch that I wanted to share with you guys. Alright, so the heart of this patch is Plaits by Mutable instruments. And I'm basically modulating the model input, so you can cycle through the models by hand or you can cycle through with CV. And as a CV source, I might be going to hell for this, but I bought my first Behringer module. This is the ARP 2500 sequencer module, and I have to say for a Behringer module it's pretty sturdy. It's all a metal faceplate, so yeah, we'll see how long it will last, but for now it does the job. So this is the basic Plaits patch. Let's focus on one step first. So I'll take the position gate 1 output, return it to the reset input, or actually I need to use step 2. Now we're locked into step 1. So the first CV is going to the model input. So if I turn up this knob, I can select the model. And it's always additive. So if I start on the last model, it only goes up. So one thing you can do is if you set it to the kick drum. Now if I go to the second step, I can set this to the next one, a snare, or maybe a hi-hat. And now if I move to the fifth step, so we have a 4-step pattern. So in this case the first one is a kick, second is a hi-hat, third one can be a snare, and the fourth one will be a hi-hat again. But let me reset output C, because on this one it's going to Loose Fruit by God's Box. And I'm basically using this one as a crossfader module right now. So I've got the main output from Plaits and the aux output. Normally you can mix with this knob. If you do that, we've got the aux output or the regular output. But I'm using the control voltage, so now I can mix with these steps. Or I can blend between the modes actually. So that's the main patch. Then I'm also using a kick drum, so the mutant bass drum. And I'm triggering patterns from the Turing Machine. So the output is going to a mixer, so I can combine both signals. But one other trick I used is to use one of the outputs from the Turing Machine and use that as a reset input to the sequencer. I'm using output number 7, so that means that randomly the pattern is reset, so it becomes less predictable. And of course now I can play around with the CV amount to add some more randomness. But I can also go back to the first mode. And as a trigger input to Plaits, I'm using the clock output, which is going into a mult, and that is also going into the Turing Machine. So I'm taking the output from the Loose Fruit into the mini drive, which adds some distortion. Then that output goes into a Erica Synths BBD delay, and I'm using the dry-wet output, which is connected to the mixer. But I've turned the dry-wet all the way down, so this is just the dry sound. But since it also has a wet output, I can send that to a spring reverb, and I'm returning that to a third channel on the mixer. So now I can blend in dry-wet but with a reverb added. If we add the effects, without reverb, and the cool thing is the feedback on this thing. It will basically self-oscillate. Whoa, that's cool. Alright, and finally I'm also using clouds. I'm triggering this also from the Turing Machine, and I'm basically using this in freeze mode. So first we need to sample something, and it's recording everything. So it's just before the main output. Okay, let's freeze that. If I turn up the dry wet, this is what's recorded. Increase the size and play around with the position. But since I'm triggering it, it's still locked to the rhythm. So we can blend that in. I may need to play around with the size a little bit, the position. Oh, let me actually bend the channels as well. That's way more interesting. And again, of course, pitch this. FM. Modulate the timbre and maybe the harmonics, or the morph actually. I mean, playing around with the start mode. And if I want, I can use the second CV output. Connect that to the level, so the accent. It's really interesting that you get so much control with a sequencer like this. The only thing I wish this sequencer had was like a reset input for separate channels. It only resets the entire sequence. Other than that, it's pretty cool. And if you like a pattern, you can always lock the sequence from the Turing Machine. or sample a new pattern with clouds. Alright, well, let me know what you think about this patch. You can also easily recreate this with the default VCV rec sequencer and Plaits over there. Yeah, let me know what you think about this patch. If you have any questions, you can also join my Facebook group to learn more about hardware. Yeah, I'll see you soon with another tutorial.